Hey guys, it's Ben the Coin Geek at Old Pueblo Coin, and today let's have some fun with coins, shall we? Armed with only my red book, we're going to go through some half cents here. I got this old Whitman album in, and what a little treasure trove these old albums are for lots of reasons. One, of course, they contain everyone's favorite thing, coins, right? I mean, if you're watching this, you like coins. Two, they also, have the dates, and then you've got the mintages listed, and it's just fun. So we're going to look at these different coins and talk a little bit about what we see date by date. What I'm going to do is I'm going to back up a little bit for a second here, and we're going to pull out a red book. You can see I don't even have the current red book, and I don't care, because what you can do, you can just get a red book from anywhere and find something that's a decade old or whatever, and the information in here will still be good. Of course, red books are set up chronologically, so you start with they're also set up denominationally, right? So we start with the half cent, and then after that they are in order. So we're going to go ahead and look and see a few things here. I'm going to zoom back in and talk a little bit about these at the half cents. Early on, I mean, that was kind of a big deal. They were authorized right away in 1792 when the mint was rocking, at its new birth here in January 14 of 1793. They were going forward. Here we go, rock and roll. So the first one, that 1793 with the Liberty cap facing left, only 35,000 were made. And then after that, you get into these ones that are facing to the right. And you can see right away that there's several different designs here and how beautiful they are. Now you'll also notice, perhaps if you're looking at some of the price points in these things, that they actually show AG, about good, which means coins that are pretty rough, they're still showing pretty high values on. So these can be pretty tough to get the earliest dates. And once you get onto the later dates, we'll take a look and see. All right, so let's start with this earliest coin we've got in the holder here, 1800. For those of you who are really sharp, you may have noticed that there was a coin here earlier that's not here. That's in another video for another day. The legend of 1800, not quite like the legend of 1900. Let's see what we can learn about this thing just by looking at it pretty close, other than the fact that it is corroded. So one of the challenges with large cents and half cents in just early U.S. copper is planchet quality, and by that I mean the metal that the coin is struck on is the planchet. Just the survivability of this stuff, it's just super rough, and so that makes coins that are very, very nice coins at a premium. It also means that you can find stuff, if you're just trying to put together an album date set like this, you can find stuff actually online on eBay that is really rough, but with a legible date. If you just want the legible date, then you can find stuff like that and have fun with it. And they won't be super crazy expensive. What's fun about these also is, so here this 1800, you can see there's going to be different, just the one type they're showing, 202,000 made. And then they have approximate price points. So although this isn't like spending $5 on a coin, you can find a lot of coins in this series for less than $100 online, and we'll take a look at that a little bit later as we go through here with our study, with our adventure. I'm going to set this guy aside. 211,000 made on that guy. Interesting enough, they have a very different mintage in here than they have in the red book, which I find to be kind of interesting. Yeah, very interesting actually. Also, you'll notice, so the 1802, 14,000 of those. Also a different number than in the red book. Yeah, we'll see what happens here. 1803, 97.9 thousand. So there's some little annotations in the red book that looks like we may end up seeing a little bit of some disparity because there's some other unknown quantities involved. But we'll take a look at this coin here. 1803, once again, you look at just how rough that date is and the overall planchet quality on that coin. And the other thing to note is as you look through the red book, we're going to see there's lots of varieties involved in the earlier coins. One of my favorite things about the half cent, the early half cents have that 1/200 moniker, which I think is kind of cool. You know, anyone who wants to have fun with fractions, because you know that's what everyone wants to do. Oh, did I say I only had one book with me? Sorry about that. So this is the American half cent book. The Little Half Sisters, that's humor, Roger S. Cohen. So if you want to know how, oh, look at this. I'm so excited about this. Look at this. This actually is the first old Pueblo Coin location at 3140 Speedway. And the area code was different back then. All right, little surprises. So the Cohen book is a book on varieties. So if you want to get into the nitty-gritty on stuff like this is a book to get. And what you'll see is lists that have the different presses, the different reverses. And so these flow charts are always very fun to look at. But also, if you want to go back, they've got, before that, we've got some sections here with, you know, the images of different types. Images aren't the easiest to see, but they have pretty nice descriptions. So if we're going to zoom in on these, they talk about where the die breaks are, you know, where the line crack extends from and to. And so these are the varieties that people look for. And so you'll see, for example, this broken obverse has a big die chip, you know, causing a cut on the edge. So you can see there's lots and lots and lots of varieties on half cents, just like large cents. And that's the type of thing that's just kind of a fun side note. So on anything like this, you can go from the basic, like what does the red book say? I just want one of each date. And you can go all the way down to getting into a book like the Cohen book and finding all of the fine details. So for example, you know, you want to see a difference in mintage. These ones in the tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands, and then all of a sudden it's 1804, you had 1.1 million of them. And of course it is, oftentimes when I see this type, they are dated 1804. They're just kind of everywhere compared to some of the other dates with the same design. So, but a handsome design overall, of course, as we were talking about earlier, with the wreath design, very traditional looking coin for your 19th, you know, your early 19th century coinage from the U.S. So if we were to go to eBay and look up 1804 half cents as an example, what you would see is, of course, there's all kinds of stuff there for sale that has price points below, galore. But if you look at sold listings, one of the things that you can look at is, you know, stuff that is, you know, nothing too exciting, right? They're rough coins, you know, but you'll see there's a lot of coins that are rougher coins that are selling for, you know, 20, 30, 40, 50 bucks. And then you can find some that are a little bit nicer grade, better planchet, like we talked about, a couple $100. So of course you can spend hundreds of dollars a coin, but what's fun to me about a lot of early US Americana, if you're not really too keen on the overall grade, then what you can do is you can really find coins that are not too expensive relative to the scarcity of the coin. It's really an interesting market to me because you've got coins that are super rare or really low mintage, and yet they only sell for a lot if they're really a clean planchet. So let's look again real quick here at just the red book and see this 1805. See, 1804, they list, you know, 5 or 6 varieties there, but of course there are, Cohen's got, I think, at least 14 different varieties listed in there. 1805, vintage of 814,000. That's exactly what it says here, by the way. Then 1806, once again, they're showing some of the major varieties, but there's a lot of different varieties in there. And let's just go ahead and see. So the 1806 in 1807, 1808, or the last years of what's known as the draped bust variety. So that first variety that's in there, we've got the Liberty cap facing left, and then the Liberty cap facing right, the draped bust, and then after that we're going to get into the classic head, which starts right from 1808. You could jump to the 1809, and then again we're going to run into the braided hair starting into the 1840s. So let's take a look ahead here at getting out of this page, 1807. Let's see what we got on the next page. And here's that transition, 1807, 1808, and then in 1809, you had a change already, which is something that, by the way, cleaned or not cleaned, folks? yeah, that is definitely a little bit on the polished side. That's what copper looks like when you get it really shined up pretty. Like, by the way, don't polish your coins, please. Not a thing that we want to have happen. So 1808, and you saw once again several years with low mintages, less than $500,000, and then 1809, new mintage comes out, and you get the 1.2 million, and then immediately the next year it drops 215,000, 63,000, 60,000, and you start seeing with these classic head style mintages that are mostly going to be 200,000-ish and less, and then you get a few higher ones. This is 1828. So inevitably, if you run a coin shop, you're going to run into probably one of two coins. This 1828, which we see somewhat frequently as far as half cents go. So when someone has a typeset, typesets where you're just collecting one of each type of coin. If you are doing a typeset, oftentimes you'll see a really nice high-grade 1828 mixed in there. And the classic head design, once again, a somewhat similar overall kind of taste and palette. Here we go, nice Americana, as far as you just have lots of stars and lots of wreaths going on. But of course, side by side, your half cent, both with different style wreaths. I really enjoy the open wreaths here from the older coins. Of course, then this closed wreath comes into style where it loops all the way around. And then once again, United States of America, half cent, does not have the fraction anymore. I'm already missing doing math. And of course, here you've got the stars upon the R's on these later dates, instead of this big open space that you had on the earlier 1820s, early 1800s issues. So one of the things that I found interesting is talking about how the Whitman albums have lots of fun stuff in it. You'll note, 1829, 1832, one of the things that the Whitman albums often did was that if there was a date that was considered super impossible to get, they just left it out. So 1838, original ones, they made 2,200 of them. And so that in and of itself is its own study, because then you see that they also made restrikes. And so with different reverses and varieties. So this is the type of thing that if someone has all three of these, it just becomes its own educational video. I mean, you're talking about a very, very different type of beast. So they don't even include that coin, of course. In here, I just wrote the date and mintage on that. So once again, you see that these coins have super low mintages relative to other things. Like I kind of think about some of the modern silver eagles that people collect and how expensive they can get, and yet, they're all uncirculated, they're all in nice condition, and yet here we are, right? And yet you can buy kind of these funky old worn half cents, for 20, 30, 40, 50 bucks. And I realize that if someone gets into this and gets deep into it, you're starting to collect things that are going to be, very expensive coins if you're trying to get all the varieties and trying to get them in high grade. But the fun part is that you can collect coins that look like they went through an acid rain, like this one. This one actually probably was dug up. This looks like it spent some time in the dirt. I like to point that out just because some people don't get a lot of exposure to different types of coins. This guy probably was dug. So copper underground is found naturally. Copper coins underground, pretty disastrous. Pretty disastrous on that. So in this last half of the series, we're going to the 1830s, with the classic head, 1834, 1835, and then you'll see this gap. And one of the things about coins in history is that you look at all the gaps in the coin production, and sometimes if you don't take the time to sit and wonder why, maybe it's just like, okay, they made it in 1835 and then in 1849. But the 1830s, not a happy time. In fact, in the Red Book, one of the things that they have in the list in the Red Book are something called hard time tokens. And look at those hard time tokens, and then look again at the dates that they correspond to, and you'll see some dates that are missing in action here in the half-cent series. This 1849 is lovely. Once again, what's cool, check out the size of the date on that. Like, in my mind, I just think, was this guy... He's like the retiree coming in here, and he's got to like make sure he can read his own date he puts on there. One of the things that I actually think is kind of fun about some of these latter date large cents is just how large that edge is off of the rim to the denticles. So they're plain edges. Sometimes I accidentally say reading when they're plain, because this is the reading, is the little dots here. But that big wide open edge I always thought was kind of a cool effect on the latter half of the half cents. And so from the classic head to this the braided style, you'll see once again the reverse on here is actually extremely similar. Still just said the half cent. You had that broader rim like I pointed out earlier, and then but it still has a ribbon design, United States of America, no fraction, and then of course a complete redesign where you don't have the stars off kilter on each side. The stars come all the way around the edge, kind of in a more uniform pattern on these guys. So in those 1840s, you also run into all kinds of strange items here because you have originals and restrikes on these issues that are not listed, of course, in this book because they don't start till that 1849. So kind of a whole another area of specialties that you can get into. So in 1849, of course, this is the large date version. You can tell we were just talking about that. There's a small date version on that. So, and you have mintages once again that are actually pretty low. Look at that, 30, 40, 50,000 coins. And yet most of them in circulated grades are 50, 60, 70 bucks. And, and then you go on to your large cents. So a very short-lived series here for this, braided hairstyle. That 1857 mintage of 35,000 is kind of the key date on there. And so some of the newer albums, of course, are designed a little bit differently than this one. You might have some other things included, but generally speaking, they're going to skip all those proof restrike issues. But overall, it's a pretty fun series to collect with lots and lots of varieties and challenges. So if you want to look for something with a very collectability with like low-grade coins, it's actually very doable on a lot of this stuff, as long as you don't mind having stuff that's a little rough around the edges. People sell sometimes these polished coins for not that much money because, you know what, they're polished. So all in all, a great part of American coin collecting. All right, guys, that does it for today. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Ben the Coin Geek. You can subscribe by clicking on the owl button in the corner and watch more videos on the right side of the screen. Thanks.